My name's Kohl, and we're going to be talking about the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, also known as So, the game starts off with this weird ominous voice saying, hey, we need to awaken the hero of time, who's this weird looking blonde-haired, blue-eyed Hitler youth child, right? So this other voice is like, cool, we can do that. So we enter the game, and it's just a first person point of view, flying through the village of what seems to be like children, right? So we get there and we encounter this child who is sleeping, but because of Nintendo 64 graphics capabilities, his eyes were wide open, but he was sleeping, right? So he wakes up and this little fairy shows him and says, hey, you need to save the world. And this child, whose name is Link, is all like, okay, cool, whatever, I got nothing else to do, right? So he wakes up, he leaves his little home, and he tries to leave the forest, and this little ginger is all like, hey, you can't leave the forest because I hate you because you don't have a fairy. But wait, you have a fairy. Okay, cool, whatever. You still can't leave the forest because you don't have a sword or a shield, and I can't allow that to happen. So Link's like, damn it, man, I gotta get a sword and a shield? So in order for him to get a sword and a shield, he's gotta do these menial tasks. He's gotta like jump across a pond, he's gotta walk across a bridge and cut some grass and lift some rocks in order for him to get 40 rupees to get a shield, which is a wooden shield. It's just made of wood. It's nothing impressive whatsoever. And he's like, cool, I got a shield now, but how do I get a sword? So he's gotta like, sorry. So I gotta get a sword at this point, right? So he's got to like crawl through a hole. He's got like Indiana Jones away from some rocks and stuff that are rolling around. And he finally finds his sword, which is just like a little cheese knife at this point. And he's like, cool, I got everything. And so like, he's got to go back to this little ginger again and be like, hey, I'm ready to leave. And he's like, nah, you can't do that because you don't, son, you do got the sword and the shield, right? All right, well, you're still a douchebag, so, but I'm just gonna let you leave at this point. So Link's like, cool, thanks, douche. And he walks away, and he gets to this giant tree, which is the Count Deku Tree. Deku Tree. Yes. He's like, hey, I've been cursed. You need to save my life. So, jump into my mouth. And Link's all like, okay, cool, we'll do that, because that's not weird whatsoever. And he does that, and so he goes in, and like, he does some things, and does some puzzles, and he gets a slingshot, which is cool for a child, because, you know, we can't have ultimate weapons at this point in time. And then Navi, which is the name of his fairy that he just got like 20 seconds ago, is like, hey, listen, hey, jump through this giant spider web. Hey, listen, spider web. And Link's like, God, you're annoying, but okay, I'll listen to you. So he jumps through the spider web and he has to defeat Queen Golma. He has to defeat Queen something with a G. He does that. And so he beats it. And he walks out of the Count Deku Tree's mouth. Not even Count. The Deku Tree, the great Deku Tree's mouth. And the Deku Tree was extremely happy and like, bro, you saved my life. JK, I'm still gonna die because some dude from the desert by the name of Ganondorf cursed me and I was gonna die anyways. But this is gonna go ahead and set you on your path to become a hero. Here is the spirit stone of the forest. And it's this cool little emerald looking like thing. And Link's like, cool, what do I do next? So once the great Deku Tree dies, you have to leave the forest. But before you do, your best friend in the entire world, Saria, who's this cute ass little green haired chick, is like, no, don't leave me. I guess you gotta leave me to save the forest or the world or, you know, the universe. But take this ocarina. It's called the Fairy Ocarina because you're clearly a little fairy. And so you're like, okay, cool. So we leave, and then we go to the Hyrule Fields, and we know we have to go to the Hyrule Castle. But once we get there, we meet this little red-haired chick because, you know, cute redheads seem to be a thing in this game so far. And she's like, oh my God, my dad's missing. Just help me find him. And you're like, fine, whatever, I'll do it. So you go through the Hyrule Castle and you go through all these trials and tribulations, and you finally find this like daddy of a man who's just sleeping, and you're like, wake up. And he wakes up. He's like, oh, my daughter must be so worried about me, and he leaves. And you're like, cool, so I can finish my destiny at this point. And you go through all these mazes and you meet Princess Zelda, who's looking through a window because she's sneaky and spying on her dad. And you see this like creepy, obvious villain at this point named Ganondorf. And he's having a secret meeting with, you know, the king. And Zelda's all like, hey, you know what? That's a bad dude. You should probably help save the world. So go find these other spirit stones. You know, the water one and the fire or earth one or whatever that one is. And you're like, okay, cool, fine, sure. I have nothing else to do with my day. I'm gonna do that. So you leave, but you eventually find your way back to this place. And you're stopped by this like ninja looking chick. Her name's Impa. And she's like, hey, you got an ocarina. I'm gonna teach you a song. It's Zelda's lullaby. Okay? And Link learns it. He's like, this is a dope song. I'm gonna play it forever. Which you do. And then you eventually leave. And you're like, okay, cool, I'm over that song. And you go to Lon Lon Ranch where you meet Melon again. And she's like, you found my daddy. And daddy's like, hey, meet this tiny little horse. Her name's Epona, and she's adorable. So we meet baby Epona, and then you just leave, and you have to go back to the Kokiri Forest, and you have to go through the Lost Woods, and you go through this maze and everything, and then you meet your little green-haired girlfriend again, who's like, hey, we can't be a couple anymore, but I'm gonna teach you my song, and it's called Saria's Song. And you're like, okay, I guess that's cool, whatever, friend zoned, number one. And then you leave, and then you have to go to this place called the Kakariko Village in order to like find the Hylian shield. And you have to do some grave digging because, you know, illegal activities. And you find the Hylian shield. So you do that. It's a shield. You can barely wear it. It's so big. It's basically the size of you at this point in time. And you go to Death Mountain's Trail at this point where you meet the king of the Gorons, and he's all sad and everything, and you're like, why are you sad? He's like, I need a dope song to make me feel better. So lucky for you, you have this cool song called Saria's Song, which is this like dope Irish jig. And he's like, that's so cool, thanks for making me feel better. Go ahead and beat on King Dodongo because he's a jerk. And you're like, okay, I will do that. So you go down into this mountain cavern and this little puzzle forest. Nope, not a forest. It's a mountain forest, okay? And you eventually come up to this giant lizard whose name is King Dodongo. And the only way to beat him is to throw these bombs into his mouth. How do you get the bombs though? They're grown from flowers. Like, that's some genetic shit right there. So you pick up these bomb flowers and you throw them in his mouth. And then you beat him. And they're all like, oh my God, you're so cool. Thanks for beating King Dodongo. Here's the ruby for clearing the forest. No, not a forest. The ruby for clearing the mountain of death. It's the Goron's ruby. It's a fire ruby, okay? And you win. So once we get the Goron's ruby, the next task is to go to the Zora's River, where you eventually meet King Zora, who's extremely depressed right now because his daughter's missing. And in order to find his daughter, you have to go to King Jabu-Jabu's belly. But he's like, F you, bro. You can't go here unless you make me feel better. So you play Zelda's Lullaby, which then starts the longest cutscene in the entirety of all video games, which is just him scooching his butt over to the side. Okay.
Can you do it?
You want me to do it?
Yeah.
So, okay, here's how it goes. So, he's sitting here, he's like, oh God. 20 minutes later, that's what you get. Eventually, you get to King Jabu-Jabu's belly. I was gonna say butthole, but that's not accurate. It's his belly. So you get there and you enter through his mouth and everything like that. And in order to like get further in, you find a boomerang because he somehow, you know, swallowed a boomerang. And you hit his uvula. And for those of you who are uneducated, it's that little dangly thing in the back of your throat, okay? The uvula. And that's how you get deeper into it. And so you find Princess Ruto, who's like, I'm here to help out too. And you're like, you're a bitch and I hate you. But whatever, so you do that. And you go through, you boomerang, you carry her everywhere because she is just that annoying within life, right? And you kill some stomach bugs, and then you eventually get to the boss, whose name is Baronade? Whatever, which again, spoiler alert, you have to use the boomerang to beat. And once you beat the Baronade boss, Princess Ruto's like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna go ahead and give you the Sapphire of Water. But there's a catch in the Zora, culture. That means it's an engagement ring. And Princess Ruto is saying like, hey, now you have to marry me. And Link's all like, oh, sure, why not? We'll do it. And then, you leave. And that's just the beginning of the end for Link because he's now engaged to some fish person. And it's considered bestiality. That's kind of gross in my personal opinion. So
You're not about that.
What?
You're not about bestiality.
I am so not about bestiality. Like, who the wants to a fish? That is gross. Okay?
Oh, I done my face?
So you leave, and now you got all three of the cool, sapphire things. You have the emerald, the ruby, and the sapphire. So you go back to the Temple of Time, where you put all three crystals. But before you even get to the Temple of Time, you get this cool ass cutscene, which is the most pivotal cutscenes of the entire game, where you see Princess Zelda running out of Hyrule Castle on a horse with Impa, and she sees you, and she Tom Brady's this ocarina. She straight up just throws that thing, and you're like, what is that? Whatever. So you keep running, and then you see Ganondorf, who stops you. So you try to fight him, but he force pushes your ass back because you're a little bitch at this point, and he runs off. But you remember that Zelda Tom Brady that thing into the thing. It's the moat. It's a moat. Okay, so you dive into the moat, you pick up whatever she threw, which is the Ocarina of Time, the title of the game.
So it's important.
Obviously, it's the Ocarina of fucking Time. Whatever. So you pick that up, right? And you instinctively know you have to go to the Temple of Time, where you put down the ruby, the emerald, and the sapphire. And once you do that, you pull up this Ocarina of Time, which immediately you get a flashback, somehow, magic, sorcery, I don't know, of Princess Zelda teaching you the Song of Time, which is pretty much the most important thing in this entire game because it lets you reverse time. So you play that, and this gate opens, right? And inside is this cool ass sword. Apparently it's called the Master Sword. Once you touch the Master Sword, you're like, I can pull it out. It's like a King Arthur scenario, right? Only he who is worthy can pull the sword from the stone.
Was that the voice?
I'm gonna say that's what it is, because that's what reminds me of Monty Python, okay? So, Link goes in, he's 6 years old at this point. I don't know how old he is. And he pulls it up, and then all of a sudden, everything happens. The gates open to the sacred realm, but you see Ganondorf come back and saying, you're a dirty bitch. I followed you, and now I'm in the sacred realm, and I know stuff. But because Link is too young to wield the Master Sword, the sacred realm puts him to a sleep for 7 years, okay? He's not worthy until he becomes of age, which is the legal age of 18 years old, by the way. So they do that, and then he wakes up, and Raubon, the Sage of Light, nope. What's his name? Rauru, the Sage of Light. It's like, hey, bro, you've been sleeping for 7 years. You should probably wake up and save the world at this point. And Link's like, okay, you know what? I'm sorry, my bad. I was tired. We'll do this now. So he wakes up from his 7-year-long sleep, and then he meets this sexy ninja boy, okay, by the name of Sheik. And Sheik is all like, hey, the world's f***ed at this point. You should probably do something about it, considering you're the hero of time and everything, right? So Link's all like, cool. I guess I'll go ahead and do that. I got this cool new sword. So now where do I go? And Sheik's like, back to Kakariko Village where you started this entire time. So Link runs back there to figure everything out.
Kokiri Forest.
What did I say?
Kakariko Village.
So Sheik tells me I need to go like save the sages. And the first stop is Kokiri Forest. I'm like, oh, bro, I grew up there. I know that place like the back of my hand, right? So you go there and you find out that Saria, your like home slice #1 best friend, is missing. You're like, oh, I love her. I gotta like, you know, go save her. So in order to get there though, you have to go to like some graveyard. I think it's in the Kakariko village. Sounds about right. So we go to the Kakariko village and we start grave digging because we're f***ing a hooligan at this point, and we find the hook shot, which lets you like hook onto things and pull yourself towards it.
Like Spider-Man?
Like Spider-Man! Yeah, you become Spider-Man. Legend of Spider-Man, Ocarina of Time. So you do that, right? And then you're like, oh my god, wait. When I was a kid, I remember I had a horse that I met who was so cool. So you go back to Hyrule Field and go to Lon Lon Ranch. And you're like, hey, I want my horse back. Her name's Epona. And then you meet this douchebag named Waluigi. Nope, he looks like Waluigi, but his name is Igno? Ignis? His name is Ingo. And he's like, I'll give you the horse if you can beat me in a race. And guess what? You beat him in a race. And Ingo is all like, nah, I changed my mind. You can't leave. So he shuts all the gates to the Lon Lon Ranch. You're like, well, this sucks. But luckily, Epona is a badass and can jump any fence in the world. So you jump over a fence and you steal Epona because Link is a degenerate. Okay? So he does that, and now he goes back to the forest, the Kokiri Forest, and goes through the Lost Woods, and they meet Sheik again, who's like, hey, you should learn a song on this ocarina called the Minuet of Forest, and that helps you get back to the beginning of this place. Don't ask me how it goes, because
You don't know? You don't know how it goes?
I so don't know how it goes. We listened to it like 20 minutes ago, and I still don't remember how it goes. Okay? So we go in there, and Navi's all like, wait a second. By the way, Navi's your fairy. In case I never said that prior. But it's a fairy. And she's annoying. Navi's like, wait. I'm worried about Saria. Where's Saria going? And you're like, that's cool. I'll figure it out. You know, whatever. And as you go through this forest temple, you get a bow, right? Which is the coolest weapon in the entire game. Fuck the hook shot. No one cares if you're Spider-Man. You got a bow and arrow at this point.
Hawkeye versus Spider-Man.
Hawkeye versus Spider-Man. Hawkeye would destroy Spider-Man. I love you, Peter. Regardless, so you go through it with this bow and arrow, and you get to the final boss, who is Ganondorf. Ganondorf. But turns out it's not actually Ganondorf. It's Phantom Ganon. And in order to beat him, you just have to use your dope-ass bow and arrow and shoot some paintings.
So it's handy you got that.
It's extremely important that you got that, because now you can kill Phantom Ganon. And once you beat Phantom Ganon, You've beat the Forest Temple, and now you've unlocked the Sage of the Forest. And guess who that is? Guess. You're not guessing. I said guess.
Sorry.
Oh my God, you know you cheated. It's Saria, your ex-girlfriend when you were a child. And she's like, we can't bone. I'm the Sage of the Forest. Sorry, bro. Go save the rest of the world. Your next stop is gonna go ahead and be on, back with the Gorons. With King Dodongo. That's where you're going next. So, go there. Okay? So, Rob, look at me. This has to be for the dry run. I need to focus, okay?
Eye
Great.
contact.
So, once you get Saria, she's all like, hey, guess what? You gotta go back to Mount Doom to meet some Gorons again. And you're like, dope. Me and the Gorons are super bros. So you get there and you find out there's this little Goron who's pissed off at the world and rolling around the Mount Doom. And in order to stop him, you gotta throw bombs at him. He's like, oh my God. We'll leave that in for the actual. Okay? Because that's never gonna happen again, naturally, at all. So you get this Goron who's rolling around Mount Doom and he's just sad for whatever reason. So in order to rebel against the man, he rolls around Mount Doom. And in order to stop him, you throw a fucking bomb at him. Because that's a nice thing to do, right? Hey, stop rolling. Here's a bomb. He's like,
rude.
It's extremely rude. Who would do that? This is 2020. We accept everybody, okay? And so you throw the bomb at him. He's like, thanks for stopping me. I was going insane. Here's the Goron tunic, which basically protects you from extremely high temperatures, which is ironically perfect for your next adventure. So you head to the volcano and you wearing your cool ass Goron tunic and everything. Like, what's up? I'm badass. And Sheik shows up again, who ironically does not have a Goron tunic. And it's like, hey, let me teach you a song called the Bolero of Fire. In that song, I actually know it's
Do it.
do 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 do, and it goes to some dope ass beat after that because it's a great song. I'm like, cool, now I know how to get here after I die, because you will die a few hundred times. Regardless, so you head into the volcano and you have to free some Gorons because they're prisoners. And you're like, you're free now. Go be free. And they're like, cool. So here's a hammer. Because you need the hammer. And you're like, dope. Thanks for this hammer. It's called the Megaton hammer. And then you get to the final boss, whose name is Volvagia, who's a giant dragon snake lizard thing. And all you have to do to beat him is beat him with a hammer. That's it. End of story. You beat him with a hammer and he's dead. And guess who the Sage of Fire is? You're not, oh, okay, you don't guess, that's fine. It's Darunia, your homebro from the beginning of all of this. My brother. We became brothers because I made him dance using Saria's song, What's Up, Son? And so, yeah, now you're brothers. And he's the Sage of the Fire Temple. So you find out that Darunia, your brother, the Goron, is the Fire Sage of Mount Doom. He's like, cool, you're awesome. Next step is to go to the Water Temple, which is the absolute shittiest of the temples. Why it's not the last temple is beyond me, because it's trash. It's garbage. It's the hardest of the temples. You go there, and Navi's all like, hey, time to go to Hylia, because it's the next place to go. And you go there, and then you find some iron boots, and you have to go down to the bottom of Lake Hylia. And it's all like, hey, time to go into the temple. Again, and I will repeat, is garbage. Because there's 3 layers to this temple that you have to keep adjusting the water levels to, which is the most annoying garbage in the world. But hey, you have your iron boots, right? It's no big deal, whatever. But then you get to this mini boss, which is the best, and I will repeat for you, sir, the best mini boss ever created, which is Dark Link, the shadow of yourself, who legitimately mimics every single one of your movements. And the only way to stop him is with the big Goron sword, which is the most useless weapon in the entire game up until this point. Let's be honest. So you beat him, you kick his ass, whatever. You move on over, you get an item called the long shot, which you already have the hook shot because you stole it from the graveyard, but the long shot is bigger. Bigger's better. Okay? Bigger's better. And then you get to the final boss, which is Morpheus? Morpheus. We're gonna go with Morpheus. It's a water thing with an eyeball, okay? In order to beat this water thing with eyeball, you have to use your new long shot and shoot the eyeball out of the water. And you just kick the out of it, and bam, you're done. And then you unlock the water stage. And guess who the water stage is?
Who?
You're not. It's your ex-fiance, Princess Ruto. And she's like, hey, guess what? Can't get married anymore because I'm like 7 years older and also the sage of the water temple. So sorry to break your heart. Link's heart was not broken, but it's fine. Move on with the rest of your life. So you're like, okay, whatever. And you move on with the rest of your life.
How much left? It's like one set.
Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, me. Hearts. Once you beat Morpheus, who you like, fuck that, I don't want to go to the Matrix. You have to go to the next section of the stages, which is the Shadow Temple. In order to do that, you have to go back to Kid Link, and you have to go back to Kakariko Village, because for some reason, that's the center point of this entire adventure, is Kakariko Village. And there's a monster in the well. You. You're just sitting here doing this shit. You can't do that for me.
Do it.
He did it.
You do it.
I just did it. So you go back to the Kakariko village as a child because there's monsters in this well, right? So you go through, you kill all the monsters in the well within Kakariko village, and then you get the Phantom Hourglass, which is gonna help you through the final section of the game. It's not important right now, but you have it now, right? So you kill all the scary monsters, and then you have to go back to Adult Link by, Song of Time, Hyrule Temple, blah, 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 right? And you're an adult again. And then now you go to the Shadow Temple, which you go through all that crap. You get the hover boots, which are probably by far the best items in the game, because you just run off a cliff and guess what? You're f***ing hovering. And they're cool. They're awesome. So you do that. And once you get there, you get to the final boss of the Shadow Temple, which is Bongo Bongo, which is my personal favorite boss of the entire game. It's just two giant hands just doing boom, 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 boom on a f***ing drum.
Like Donkey Konga?
Like Donkey Konga, bro. Like, that's a...
Great game.
Oh my god, that's a great analogy right there. Fucking Bongo Bongo Donkey Konga's your ass.
Donkey Kongo.
Donkey Kongo, it's perfect. And you shoot him with your arrows in his hands, and all of a sudden this giant eyeball comes out. And guess what? You f***ing kill the eyeball.
There's a lot of eyeballs.
There's a lot of eyeballs in this game, but you kill them. So... Oh, f***. Okay, that's fine. We're good. I can keep going. Where were we?
Eyeball.
Which eyeball?
Donkey Kongo.
Donkey Kongo eyeball. So you kill the eyeball of Bongo Bongo. Bongo Bongo died, and you're like, cool, I unlock the stage of the Shadow Temple. Turns out the stage of the Shadow Temple is all like, hey, I'm Impa. I used to be Legend of Zelda's, guardian. And I'm gonna teach you what you need to do next. Go to the desert for the Spirit Temple. So, we find out that Impa is the Shadow Temple sage, and she's cool as shit, right? And she's like, hey, good job, you did this. So now you have to go to the Spirit Temple. But how do you find the Spirit Temple? You gotta go to the Gerudo Desert, right? And the Gerudo Desert is the land of female warriors, basically like fucking Xena, right? There's 0 males born forever, except for one exception, Ganondorf, who's the one male who was born every like umpteen thousand years. And he's apparently a badass, and as we all have discussed at this point in time, he's up the entire world. So you go there and you're like, oh crap, I gotta be a kid again. So you do the whole like time jumping thing and you come back as Kid Link. And the Gerudos are like, hey, you can't come in. So you gotta save some carpenters. And you're like, I saved you. And they're like, cool. Now you gotta go find the spirit temple. So you do that using the Phantom Hour, nope. Spirit Lens? It was Spirit Lens?
Spirit
The Lens of Truth, right?
Truth.
It was the Lens of Truth. And you run through the desert with the Lens of Truth and the Phantom Hourglass. And you find the Spirit Temple, but you can't do shit with it because you gotta be an adult again. So guess what? Gotta go back as an adult. A lot of back and forth with the Spirit Temple. It's trash, it's garbage. So you do that and you find the temple, and then Sheik's like, hey, before you go in there, let me teach you a song, which is the Requiem of Spirit. Requiem of Spirit. Don't ask me to sing it, because I don't know it, but it's the name of the song, okay?
Not even gonna try.
Nope, not at all. Just take my word for it, because I'm an expert. Okay? Great, perfect. Moving on. So you get in there, you have a cool song, and you just gotta like move shit again, and like puzzles, and you move a block and this stuff. But then you have to get this mirror shield, which is probably my favorite shield, personally, because the Hylian shield is cool and all, but like the mirror shield reflects shit, and that's cool, like light, which is a huge deal within the Spirit Temple.
And then, so you go through it and you beat it all, and then you come up with this boss whose name is Twin Rova, which is 2 different bosses, but they're like one boss or whatever. In order to beat them, you have to use your mirror shield, which is the best shield in the entire game. And so Twin Rova is an ice and a fire bitch. And the ice will shoot you, and you use your mirror shield and put it at the fire person. And the fire person will throw fire at you, and you do it to the ice person. And then they become mad, and they become one sexy fire ice person, and you just do the same shit over and over again. And then you win, right? And the stage of the Spirit Temple is unlocked, who is Naruto. Nope. I'm really bad at this. Nabucco? Naburu! Her name is Naburu. You met her as a child. It's irrelevant up until this point. You met her, she's now the spirit of the stage, Spirit Temple, whatever. So you did that. So congratulations, you've now unlocked it. Naburu's like, hey, congratulations, you've now unlocked all of the 6 spirits. You know, you've got like Saria, you got me, Naburu, you got Ruto, you got Darunia, Raban, and that other bitch, Impa. Now you can go, you can kill Ganondorf. So, good job, bro. Go kill Ganondorf.
Kill me.
Is it not? Like,
You asked me for meat.
As well.
yeah.
What kind of
Don't throw it at me, I'll fucking kill you. I'm not a sea lion.
What the f is that? Jesus Christ.
You rob a piece of meat, it'll go in my mouth, I promise you.
You're gone.
So, Naburu is telling you, you fucking did it, bro. Congratulations. Now you can go, destroy Ganondorf. You're like, okay, cool. Sorry again. So you gotta go do that. In order to do that, you gotta go back to what was formerly known as Hyrule Castle. I am so f***ed. Where am I going?
Look at your shirt, baby.
Straight out of Hyrule, bitch! So, you beat the Spirit Temple, and Naburu's like, hey, you're cool as hell. You should probably go, like, kill Ganondorf. But before you do that, you should probably go back to the Temple of Time, you know, and, like, gather up everybody, you know, strategize and stuff. So you're like, cool, I'll do that. So you go back to Hyrule Castle area and go back to the Temple of Time, where you meet Sheik, who's pretty much been like your Qui-Gon Jinn this entire time, who's taught you everything, said that you're gonna be the one to bring balance to the Force. It's cool. But then she drops some big ass shit upon you, right? Like, hey, while you were asleep 7 years ago, Ganondorf came into the Sacred Realm and stole the Triforce. But because he wasn't worthy, he only got one part of the Triforce, and he got the Triforce of Power. And because of the fact that it was split apart, you, Link, got the Triforce of Courage. Clearly, because your ass was courageous enough to do all this bullshit to save the country. Okay? And then me being chic and cool and sexy as hell, I got the Triforce of Wisdom because I taught you all these cool ass songs. But guess what? I'm not a dude. I'm Princess Zelda, bitch! And transforms into Princess Zelda. And you're like, whoa, my gay boner's gone. But hey, whatever, I'm for it. Whatever, I don't discriminate. Hey, whatever. So Zelda's like, you should probably go back to, like, you know, Hyrule Castle, because that's where Ganondorf is. You should probably, like, kick the out of that dude. And Link's like, cool, I got you, he, she, man. So he does that. And Ganondorf's castle is legitimately just like a clone of all other temples you've been through. The water, the forest, the fire, the shadow, the spirit. You've been through it all. You're like, this is easy. Until you get to the end, when you finally go up against Ganondorf. And he's like, hey, you know what we should do instead of actually fight to the death? You seen Top Gun? We should play volleyball. And he does that. He throws like an electric light bulb at you. And all you have to do is just hit it back and forth with him like umpteen times until you kick the of him, because he's really bad at volleyball. He's like, you beat me. And Princess Zelda's all like, you win, congratulations. But the castle's not breaking down because Ganondorf's pissed off. I spit. Pissed off. Did you see that? It was like a rocket launcher. Where was I? Where was I?
Castle breaking down.
Volleyball.
Volleyball, castle breaking down. Castle breaking down. So you beat Ganondorf and the castle's breaking down. And Zelda is all like, hey, you should follow me. And so you're like, okay, that seems reasonable. So you do that. You go down all the way to the bottom and also the castle breaks down. But Ganondorf's not done with you yet, because he turns into Ganon using his Triforce of Power. And he's like this giant dog thing with two swords. And guess what he does? You're not guessing.
Fight you.
Oh, no shit. But that's fine. He takes your Master Sword, which is the staple of this like entire journey, and kicks the shit out of it. It's gone. Master Sword's gone. It's out of your hands, right? And so, how do you fight him? Well, let's go and backtrack a little bit, because prior to you going to Ganon's castle, once you found out Sheik is Zelda, she's like, hey, I'm gonna give you a special tool. It's called the light arrow, okay? And remember when we talked about the very first temple where you got the bow, the best weapon in the entire game? Yeah, you gotta use that. So in order to defeat this new like dog creature Ganon, which is his name, you shoot him in the face with a light arrow that Zelda gave you. And all you have to do is take your Megaton hammer or your Goron sword, which is extremely irrelevant up until this point, still, you just slice him in the tail. And you just repeat that process. And you win. And then you save all of Hyrule. And then you like go into this sacred realm again and you meet Princess Zelda and she's like, hey, give me your ocarina. You don't need it anymore. I'm gonna play you the Song of Time to bring you back to your childhood so you can live out your life like a normal fucking person. And guess what that does? Splits the timelines! Actually, that doesn't split the timelines. It's the fact that Link pulls out the Master Sword that splits the timelines. There's 3 different timelines where like Link lives, Link dies, Kid Link lives, or something like that. And that's how you go ahead and fight Moon, who gives you 48 hours to live. With a what? With a mask. And congratulations, you beat the Ocarina of Time. And now you have to play Majora's Mask, because that's the second greatest Legend of Zelda game.
Let's talk about Link being gay.
I don't give a
Oh.
I'm so done.
You killed it though.
Yeah. Did it.
Seriously.
Yes, Queen.